Hi everybody, welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will take a look at 3 turf races coast to coast. The only graded stakes on tap this weekend is the Commonwealth Turf Stakes, and we'll also look at turf action at Aqueduct and Del Mar, the Artie Schiller Stakes and the Let It Ride Stakes, respectively. The big topic is who's going to be Horse of the Year. It's down to 2. Triple Crown winner Justify, Breeders' Cup Classic winner Accelerate. We will discuss. Also, we've got David Aragona from Timeform US spotlighting the City of Laurel Stakes at Laurel on Saturday, and Craig Milkowski, also from Timeform US, projects the pace of the Let It Ride Stakes, plus best bets and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Hot Topic segment, and there is no hotter topic in the world of thoroughbred racing than the battle for the Eclipse Award for Horse of the Year. There are 2 candidates, undefeated Triple Crown winner Justify and Breeders' Cup Classic winner Accelerate. And Matt, what I like about your opinion here is you have been consistent pretty much since before the Breeders' Cup. You said if Accelerate wins the Classic, this is a no-brainer. There is no argument. You believe Accelerate slam dunk Horse of the Year.
Well, let's not go overboard on it. I think he should be Horse of the Year based on what he did here. We're going to take a look at his final effort here in 2018. Happened to be the Breeders' Cup Classic last Saturday afternoon. But really, I mean, to me, this is just one of those instances. If you look at any other sort of sport, whether it's college football, whether it's college basketball, whatever the case may be, college baseball, even whatever, the best college player who only plays against college players for the entirety of the year, how are you going to give them the award for the best whatever sport we're talking about player for the entire year, including the professionals? My argument there is Accelerate beat all of the best horses that are older. He did it all over the country. I know you can say what you want, but he shipped into Churchill Downs and he beat the best field and arguably the biggest race of the year for us. Whereas Justify, I'm not trying to knock him, but we didn't get to see him after the Belmont Stakes, and that was only against 3-year-old restricted company. In any other sport, this isn't even an argument.
We see his past performances for this year, and that is a very impressive resume. The only time he lost in 2018 was to City of Light. City of Light won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. It is a pretty nice horse in his own right, and you see triple-digit buyers everywhere you look. Mike Beer, I know you're not one for awards. I know you hate this topic. You're a horse player. You're a handicapper. You're the resident DG around here. But you got to pick Horse of the Year. You've got to vote. Who's it going to be?
I'll go with Justify. I really feel like this is one of those where there's no wrong answer. I don't think that if whichever way you vote, people could say, you know, you're crazy. You just made a huge mistake. They're both worthy candidates, I think. I don't know that, you know, that Accelerate isn't the right kind of horse in any other year. You know, I think he's okay. I think maybe people are giving him too much credit. You know, I hear the argument against Justify. And listen, I want horses to race more and not less. And I'm disappointed that we didn't see Justify after the Belmont Stakes. But this is a horse who packed an awful lot of racing into a very short span. He did some incredible things. An undefeated Triple Crown winner. Here's the Belmont Stakes. I know this isn't a great crop of 3-year-olds. He won this race very easily. I really like what he did on the racetrack. I think he's a really quality horse. I wish we saw him against older horses. We didn't. But, you know, the argument that this was all we saw and Accelerate obviously ran in the second half of the year. I don't know. This horse ran 6 times. Accelerate ran 7 times. I don't see what the big difference is. This horse was very good. He's a good 3-year-old. I don't know what he would have done in the Classic. I like to think he would have been competitive in a race that came back with a 105 buyer. Maybe he wouldn't have. But I'll take Justify. I think this is really a coin flip, though.
I agree with Mike. I don't think there's a wrong answer here, and I think you really can make an argument for both horses. We take a look at Justify's past performances. 6 races in 5 months, 6 different distances, 4 different tracks, undefeated Triple Crown winner, and perhaps most importantly, historic. He broke the curse of Apollo. He not only won the Kentucky Derby as the first horse since Apollo to do so without ever racing as a 2-year-old, he swept the Triple Crown in doing so. So while Accelerate had a sensational campaign, on par with many of the better handicap horses campaigns we've seen in recent years from older horses, this is a historic campaign from Justify. Again, it's a shame he didn't race after the Belmont Stakes. You can also make an argument, and Matt, I'm curious what you think about this. There are going to be some folks out there that I've talked to on social media, etc., and they're going to say, Accelerate, wasn't even the best older horse that ran this year. If you just talk about ability, Gun Runner ran once this year. It was the Pegasus World Cup, and it was better than Accelerate any of his races, including his stellar performance in the P Classic. I'm really stirring it up.
No. I mean, look, I'm not going to argue with that, but I look at it from a credential standpoint. Yep. Everyone makes it the end all be all, the Triple Crown, and I understand it's really difficult to accomplish. There's only been 13 of them. But I go back to that sort of sports analogy with college basketball. The most outstanding player in the NCAA tournament, all of a sudden they should be basketball player of the year ahead of LeBron James or Steph Curry. That to me doesn't make any sense. They never faced the older horses, never faced the bigger players.
Now that's a fair point. Mike, I want you to jump in here as well. But the college players, so to speak, in this sport, that's the marquee division. That's the division everybody talks about, whether you're just a weekend warrior or whether you've been in this business as long as we have. We have Derby fever from the moment the Breeders' Cup Juvenile ends or when some exciting 2-year-old wins at Saratoga. It is the college stars, so to speak, that get all the headlines and dominated the college division.
Yeah, my argument there real quick would be Accelerate couldn't run in the Kentucky Derby.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true too. And listen, I don't know. You want the 3-year-olds to face older horses, that's for sure. It's a shame Justify didn't get to do it, But again, in this year, I just don't know. Look, I don't think there's a wrong answer. I wish Justify had run. He didn't. I get that Accelerate had a great year, but I'm not blown away by him.
Accelerate, a sensational year, managed superbly by John Sadler. Also, getting that Breeders' Cup monkey off his back, that 0 for whatever, that ridiculous statistic that had people terrified of betting Accelerate in the Classic. Big year, big performance, also an undefeated Triple Crown winner in Justify. It's going to be really interesting to see how this pans out. All I know is that the arguments are going to get more and more intense on social media. We'd love to hear what you think. Chime in on YouTube under this Out of the Gate video. Let's get to some handicapping. The Commonwealth Turf is the only graded stake this weekend, and it's up next. Let's throw up the field for the only graded stakes this weekend. It is the Commonwealth Turf to be run at Churchill Downs, carded as race number 10. $100,000 is the purse. These 3-year-olds are going to travel 1 mile and a 16th. For expanded stakes previews of the Commonwealth Turf, many other stakes races this weekend, and lots more, head on over to video.drf.com. You're going to want to catch Matt's recaps of many of the major Breeders' Cup races on video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, you looked at this race and you said, I want a price, I want tactical speed, and I think Martso's race on turf 2 starts back was pretty good. Yeah, this horse isn't a good dirt horse at all. They've run him on dirt 3 times. He's just not very good on that surface. He is a pretty good turf horse, though. And this is just the kind of race where, I don't know, I wasn't in love with the favorites in here. I do think the 4 March to the Arch is probably the horse to beat. But I'll take March. I'll take a little chance with him at a price. I think he's going to get a really good trip in this race. That's certainly been the case in his first 2 turf starts. We'll look at the replay of his 1X allowance effort at Keeneland. This is 2 starts back for him. First of all, I liked his maiden breaker on the grass, and this is his second start after that. I think he runs well in here. I realize he got a really good trip in this race, and he's not going to be able to get up at the end. But I like how game he is in here. He keeps making ground in this race. The horse that wins the race is just the horse that was on the lead the entire time. He just can't run him down at the end, but he's really trying at the end here. Between horses very late. I thought he ran fine in here. A small step forward off of that performance. I think it puts him right in the mix here. 12-1 on the morning line for a big priced horse in the number 2 Martso. Matt, I love the loyalty here. You've been a big fan of Rewrite. He's got some pretty gaudy company lines on his resume, and he finally gets a good post on the turf.
Yeah, I just feel like he's been a little bit unlucky in a number of circumstances. We're going to look at his most recent race. Now, keep in mind, this is a sloppy sealed main track race at Keeneland. Don't really use this as sort of the indicator about whether or not this horse can run. My bigger point is 2 starts back, the Dueling Grounds Derby. That was his first start off of a pretty significant layoff. 1 mile and 5/16 at Kentucky Downs. May or may not have liked that. Also had a little bit of a trip. Draw a line through that. Prior to that, they ran him in the Jim Dandy. I'm not going to hold that race against him as much as I didn't like the Jim Dandy as a whole. But the real run to me, the Mystic Lake Derby, if you think he can get back to that effort, he was wider than wide throughout. He was relatively close to a hot pace that day, and he stayed around toward the end. I think this distance is going to be fine. The inside draw helps him. A little bit of tactical ability. It's going to be very interesting to see how Flo plays this breaking from the inside. If they let him go to the lead, I think he'll take it. If the 2 is intent on going to the lead, I think they'll just take up the pocket trip and take their chance.
I usually don't like playing horses coming off perfect trips at relatively short prices, but I do think the number 7 Hot Springs knows is going to get another good stalking trip from the outside post. And this is a horse who loves Churchill Downs. He's a perfect 3 for 3 here. He won the Jefferson Cup last time out, again with that perfect in-out trip under Ricardo Santana. But I thought he was unlucky 3 starts back in the Kent Stakes at Delaware, where he was inside, he was stymied, he had to alter course, outside, inside, finally came up the rail. I thought he was an unlucky second to Golden Brown. Sandwiched in between those races is this performance in the Saranac, where he made a little bit of a move after being close to the pace, and you're going to just see him flatten out and march to the Arch, who's going to end up either the favorite or the second choice in this race, along with Hot Springs. He's diving down towards the inside in the red cap. I think Hot Springs might have needed this race. It was his first race off of a short layoff. He was up close to the pace. I think March to the Arch got the benefit of the 1 1/8 that day. I like Hot Springs cutting back to 1 1/16 here, and I like him breaking from the outside post. He gets a tepid pick, and unfortunately, a pretty short price. Craig Milkowski from Timeform US projects the pace for the Let It Ride Stakes at Del Mar. Then we'll go to break, and then please stay with us because we've got plenty of handicapping on Out of the Gate.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski of Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Today I'm going to look at the Let It Ride Stakes being run at Del Mar on Saturday. It's race number 7. And I'm going to start out by looking at the preview page. At the time I made these graph running line or post positions yet, but the post positions you see in the pace projector do correspond with the horses in by post position order. They will be their program numbers. So we can figure out who's who just by simply looking at the number and comparing it to the entries. The one thing that stuck out about this race is that it's projected to have a fast pace. You can see that by the red circled in the mini picture of the pace projector, which we'll look at here in a minute. And you can also see the running styles of the horses listed in the race. These are assigned by Timeform US and are based on past races. And you can see basically it's listed as either a leader, a tracker, somebody who likes to lay just a few lengths off the lead, and then there's just one mid-pack who is going to turn out to be an action here, but we'll get to him in a little bit. The pace projector gives you where we're projecting the horses will be. We have number 7 shown on the clear lead. He was one of the 2 leaders, and number 1 tucked in behind. He was the second one. And this just shows 7's been running actually a little bit faster. That's Calyx Man than the 1 has. That's why he's ahead. But we actually think both of these horses will try for the lead. The 7 also gets a boost. You can see I have a circle around the blinkers. He is adding blinkers for this race, which tends to add a little speed to the horses early. As I said, the first horse we're going to look at is Calyx Man. He's a 7 in the pace projector. And a few things stick out with him. I don't think there's much argument that he will be in the front early. You can see he's led his last 3 races. The 2 times he hasn't in the 5 were in sprint races. This is obviously a longer race around 2 turns. And speed, adding blinkers isn't going to hurt him at all. And this is a case where even though we think it might be a fast pace, I think Calyx Man's going to be very tough in here. He's what you'd call speed of the speed, and we're going to see why in just a second here. Next, we'll look at A Fleet Ascent. He's the other horse listed as a leader and the one who could challenge, but it's a little bit different story when you look at his past performances. First, you see he did run in a sprint last time, and he didn't show near as much speed as Calyx Man going down the hill at Santa Anita. He was as much as 4 lengths off after a half mile. He did get up to win, and he has run longer with some moderate success. But we can see in his races, though he's led in 3 of the 4 of them around 2 turns, 2 of them being on dirt, he's never really set very fast fractions. All the fractions are in blue, which in Timeform US indicates that he wasn't going particularly fast for that particular racetrack and that class of horse. You can see the final time figures for the race are higher than the pace figures, meaning the pace wasn't all that taxing. So I'm not really a big fan of A Fleet Ascent in here. He's one I'd toss. He's a speed horse who's probably not going to be able to keep up with Calyx Man. The horse I am going to focus in on here is Risky Proposition. He's that one horse from the front that we listed as a mid-pack, and there's a lot of things I like about him in here. You notice two races back, he was claimed from Mark Glatt by William Sparr, Bill Sparr. And Bill Sparr is a really good trainer, and we'll get to him in just a second. But you can see this horse has been improving all along. His speed figures are getting better, especially on turf, if you ignore that one dirt race where he didn't seem to like it. Moved from 105 up to 116 in his last. His best 2 races have come with his new trainer. And what I really liked last time is he was well off the pace. He was 5 lengths back early. The pace was really slow, and he still came flying up to get second. Now, you're still going to have to check the tote board, see what kind of value you're going to get. But I think this horse, having run in a claimer fairly recently, hasn't won in his last 4 times out. I think you might get some fair value on him. The point I wanted to make about Bill Spar was that he is just a guy. He's a solid trainer. You can see on Timeform US, we rate our trainers on a 0 to 100 scale. He's a 74, which is definitely a good trainer. But when you look at what he does with new acquisitions, that's where he really does his best. You can see he's first off the claim in 91. So this guy does good work when he gets horses from other barns, and I think that's what he's done here with this one. So that's going to be my selection. I'm going to go with him and Calix Man and Exacta Box, and hope for the best on Saturday. Hope to get some value out of those 2. That's it for this week for Timeform US's Pace Projector segment on Out of the Gate. We'll see you next week.
DRF Sports Form Digital Edition, your ultimate weekly betting guide. Published by Daily Racing Form, DRF Sports Form delivers all of the analysis and insight you need for every NFL game and more than 40 college football matchups. Beat the spread with powerful trends and sharp angles. Tap into best bets, expert picks, parlay winners, and more. All for just $4.99 per issue. Get this week's edition free. Visit drf.com/sportsform. Enter code DRF Sports.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for one of 2 stakes races at Aqueduct on Saturday. This is the feature, though, the R.D. Schiller Stakes. $150,000 is the purse. We're going 1 mile on the turf. For expanded stakes previews of the R.D. Schiller, many other stakes races this weekend, plus recaps of the Breeders' Cup races from Matt, head on over to video.drf.com. or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, I want to talk about Bricks and Mortar. He's the morning line favorite on our colleague David Aragona's morning line. This horse has been away 399 days for Chad Brown. Before the layoff, he was a 3-year-old with immense promise.
Yeah, he had run really well as a 3-year-old in all of his starts. Wound up winning the first 4 of them. He didn't win either of his last 2 starts of the year, but he was probably best in both of them. We'll look at his final start as a 3-year-old right now. This is the Hill Prince, and you're going to see him sitting down on the rail the entire way and just looking for a way through here in the stretch. And you know what, guys? He's just not going to get it here. He's going to get into a lot of traffic late. This is one of those replays where you want to see the head-on late because he just got crushed between horses late in this race. He actually ran very, very well in here. He was a quality 3-year-old. I suspect that if all is well with him, he's going to be just fine going forward for Chad. The question with this race is, how short a price do you want him? I mean, is he going to be the favorite in this race? And if he is, do you really want him as the favorite off of this kind of a layoff against these horses? There's no killers in here, but there are good horses in here. I just didn't think I wanted to bet him at a short price.
I tend to agree. It'll be very interesting to see how the tote board plays out for the R.D. Schiller. I know it was 399 days ago, but that Hill Prince has already produced 5 next out winners. Matt, let's talk about the horse breaking from the inside, Kerbon. This is going to be his 3rd start in North America. He's run well at graded stakes company both times, and you can argue this is a grade 1, grade 2 horse running in a listed stake.
Yeah, I think you can make that case that he's certainly getting some class relief. 2 starts back, he won that Baruch at a pretty square number up at Saratoga. Is it a little bit of a surprise, 13-1 in a relatively short field. Most recently in the Shadwell Turf Mile down at Keeneland, we're going to take a look at that race. I realize he had a pretty good pace to run at, but he was wide throughout. You see him looping for home right now, about 7 paths off the rail. And while no match for the top 2 finishers, Next Shares, who's shooting up down the inside, then you also have Great Wide Open, who is relatively close. Kerbon comes with just sort of an even finish, but given the ground loss and given the track condition that day, I think it was actually a better than looks effort. And you made mention, Dan, he's going to be facing probably the softest company he's faced since he's been here in the States, or at least comparable to the field that he faced in the Baruch, which he was a winner. I think he's a live shot in here. It's going to be interesting to see how soft the ground ends up going, because it sounds like you guys have some pretty good rain coming in Friday night.
And we saw him Pip analyze it at the wire for 3rd in the Shadwell Turf Mile. Analyze it, came back, ran 3rd. Good third in the Breeders' Cup Mile last week. Herbon might be sitting on going. It looks like he might get some pace. That being said, Matt, you want a horse with tactical speed. And let's be honest, Black Type can win from on the lead. He can win from off the pace. Where do you think he'll be on Saturday?
Yeah, I think he probably just sits just off the pace, and I'll leave most of the breakdown for this horse to Mike, the NYRA analyst, but I just feel like he's in great form. He can handle any sort of cut in the ground, and as you made mention, he can go out to the lead or he can sit just off a target. I think he probably sits off a target in the form that he's in. If you get the 9-2, I'd take it.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Here's his last race. This is a race, obviously, where he just wired the field of the Knickerbocker last time, but I agree with Matt. He's not going to be on the lead in here. If Black Tide elects to play, Black Tide will be on the lead in there. He's a fast horse. That's okay for Black Tide. He'll sit off the pace and run just as well as he does here. I liked this performance from him. This is 3 wins out of his last 4 starts for this horse. Very good form right now. Handles given the ground. I think there's the right trip coming for him. And most of all, I just sort of felt like of all the main contenders, and there are 3 or 4 who are pretty hard to separate, this horse just might be the best price in the race.
I believe he's 9-2 on David's morning line, and that would be a fair price considering this horse's sharp form. And we saw his most recent race. It was at 1 1/8. I think that's actually a little bit far for this horse, and we saw him outkick High Happy, a true distance lover. That distance might have been a little bit short for High Happy, but I agree with what everyone says here. Horse has good tactical speed, in good form, fair price on the morning line, 9-2. I'm with the boys. I'm going with Black Type in the R.D. Schiller Stakes. Let's head out west and let it ride. Let's throw up the field for the feature race at Del Mar on Saturday. The $75,000 Let It Ride Stakes for 3-year-olds going 1 mile on the turf. For expanded stakes previews and a lot more, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, you like a horse in here, 6-1 on the morning line with Rafael Bejarano. It's the number 6 Fight On. He's coming out of the same race as the 5 Extraordinary Jerry. That was a weirdly run race.
Yeah, it's true. I think both of these horses have something to find in this field, but we'll see if they can take a step forward. I'm particularly interested to see if Fight On can take a step forward. You're right, it was a weirdly run race. Some early moves in there. It sort of changed the whole complexion of the race on the backstretch. We'll pick it up right now at the top of the stretch. At this point, Fight On is last. Earlier in the race on the backstretch, before everybody started moving, he was sitting a perfect trip. He got shuffled out of the race, and now he's going to switch to the outside here in the very late stages. And he's finishing fastest of everybody, but he just can't get up at the end of this race. He will be placed first ultimately. I don't know. I thought he ran pretty well in here considering how much position he lost. And I just wonder, this race looks like it has a lot of pace on paper. He showed that he can finish at the end. I wonder if this race sets up well for this horse and he takes a step forward.
Let's talk about A Fleet Ascent, Matt. And this is a horse who broke my heart in the Oceanside. Boy, I needed him that day, and he just couldn't finish off the mile. And that's really been the bugaboo for A Fleet Ascent throughout his career. Can he get a distance of ground? Sure looks good sprinting on the turf. He might get a nice setup here going a mile.
That's kind of the way that I'm looking at it. We can throw up the replay of that most recent run. And like you say, really the question for A Fleet Ascent, it boils down to distance. Now you're going to take a look here. This is 6.5 furlongs down the hill at Santa Anita. He's going to come with a very game finish. I like the way that he polishes this thing off, getting up by a nose. And it's worth noting it was against older horses, and Brando the Bartender, the 3rd place finisher, was a next out winner with a 93. So he's been keeping good company. I don't think the mile he's incapable of getting. I think he's probably pushing it at that point, but I think he's going to work out a really nice trip in here. I think there's an opportunity to sit the pocket, tuck in just behind, and make a run. And again, if he can get the distance, he's probably going to get the jump on those deep closers. I'm not going to fault anyone that says that this distance is probably too far for him. I don't think it is. I think he's capable of getting it. I think he works out a good trip, and I like that most recent run. I'll take a shot here.
I'm looking for some pace between Calyx Man and Extraordinary Jerry, and maybe A Fleet Ascent to be part of that pace as well. If that's the case, it could bode well for the number 2 Prince Earl. Very lightly raced. 2 for 2 in his career, but I liked what he did in his second lifetime start. First start against winners, first start against open company, stretching out for the first time, and winning over this course and distance. Let's go back to that race way back on September the 1st, and Prince Earl got a very nice trip and ride by Martin Garcia. He saved ground turning into the stretch. You see him altering course to the center of the track, and he polishes off this race very nicely and in fast time. A 93 Beyer speed figure for Prince Earl. He was entered in the Twilight Derby. I thought Matt made a very good point in our stakes preview that maybe one of the reasons they scratched out of the Twilight Derby wasn't as much the company, but the distance. 1 1/8 and only start number 3 against better horses might have been too much. He fits this condition like a glove. I really like his tactical speed. I think Prince Earl's got a good chance to make it 3 for 3 for trainer Phil D'Amato. I'll pick him in the Let It Ride Stakes. David Aragona from Timeform US is analyzing the card at Laurel on Saturday. He's got a really intriguing horse in the City of Laurel Stakes.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. Usually I take a look at a race from New York, but there's a lot of rain in the forecast this weekend, and a lot of the good races are scheduled for turf. So let's take a look at a stakes race at Laurel Park. There are some nice dirt stakes this weekend, and the one that I'm interested in is the 8th race on Saturday. It's the City of Laurel Stakes for 3-year-olds going 7 furlongs. And the horse that's probably going to go favorite in here is Rugby Man. We've seen him in some of the graded stakes races for 3-year-olds earlier in the year. Now he's taking a step back into this non-graded stakes race. He's the 2-to-1 favorite on the morning line. We'll take a look at the Timeform US pace projector because I think it's important to talk about the pace, especially in relation to this horse. It's not predicting a fast or slow pace, but Rugby Man is the number 5 horse, and he's projected to be towards the middle of the pack. And he's a horse that can get very headstrong and rank in his races. So I'm not sure that I like the fact that he might get outrun for a forward position in this race. The horse that's projected to be on the lead is the number 4 Spartacle over the 2 Oldies But Goodies. And looking at their PPs, they do appear to be the 2 horses that are best on the front end. Let's take a look at the past performances of that favorite Rugby Man. He's obviously a talented horse, but I think he's got some mental issues that prevent him from really fulfilling his full potential. He showed a ton of talent when he broke his maiden by 14 lengths back at Belmont in May, but since then it's been kind of a struggle to get him to put forth his best form. And he did win that race 2 back at Laurel Park, and he ran a pretty fast 1-mile distance over an overmatched group. But he really had everything go his way that day because while he did break slowly once again, and he's accustomed to doing, he was able to get up into a forward position where the other horses just didn't show early speed. So he was able to get up into that position that he likes. Last time out at Keeneland, they stretched him out to 2 turns and he handled it, but he broke pretty well and was up close to a slower pace. With a faster pace in this race, I'm just not sure he's going to get that same trip. And at a relatively short price, I'm somewhat against him, though he obviously can win this race because he has talent. Just I want to look at some others in this field. The horse that I prefer is the number 7 Old Time Revival. He's going to be the second choice most likely, and I believe he's actually the most likely winner of this race. He ran very well to win that stakes at Laurel last time, and he's coming right back at 7 furlongs, the same distance. If you look through his past performances, he's always run his best races at Laurel Park. This distance between 7 furlongs and a 1-turn mile, it's really perfect for Old Time Revival. And I know we just ran down a 50-to-1 shot last time by only a nose, but you look at the form of the other horses in that race, and that 118 Timeform US speed figure, it really holds up to scrutiny. And I think he just is a horse that is, as a late season 3-year-old, that's just gotten very good. You go back to his prior races, and he ran very well behind where she told me to go 3 back, and he obviously went on to do some nice things, finishing a good second to Firenze Fire at Parks in the Gallant Bob most recently. So Old Time Revival is a horse that I just think has some real talent and should be a factor in this race. Now let's take a look at a couple of other horses that I just want to use underneath at bigger prices because I don't fully trust the favorite Rugby Man. The number 4 horse Spartacle is a horse that I'm going to use somewhere underneath. He's likely speed in this race. I'm not totally sure that he quite classes up against this field, but his speed figures have been heading in the right direction. I liked that win at Parks last time where he actually beat a decent field and just totally dominated on the front end. That was over a muddy track, and it's probably going to dry out a bit by Saturday at Laurel. There's some rain predicted Friday, but I think we should have a faster, good track on Saturday. He's got talent. He's heading in the right direction. Just I don't know if he can withstand the pace pressure. And the number 6 horse, Smooth B, is going to be a much bigger price, but he's one that I want to use underneath in exactas and trifectas because last time out in the Gallant Bob, he was just overmatched against Firenze Fire and where she told me to go. 2 back, he ran a competitive race at Parks in the slop, and overall, his fast dirt races are okay, and I think he's going to be a price in this race that can get into the mix. So I'm keying on Old Time Revival, the number 7 horse, and trying to take a little bit of a shot against the likely favorite Rugby Man. So that's the City of Laurel Stakes, 8th race on Saturday at Laurel Park. Now let's nip back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Matt Bernier, take us to Southern California for your best play.
Back to Del Mar opening weekend. We're going to go to the nightcap. This is a mile maiden special weight race on the turf. I think there's quite a bit of talent in this field. I'm most interested, though, in the number 2 horse. This is a filly called Out of Balance. We're going to go back to her career debut, just one start back. She's going to be making her second lifetime start in this race on Saturday. This was going down the hill on October the 19th at Santa Anita. And now, look, there's a lot going on here. You're going to see her all the way down the back, down on the inside. And for the majority of this stretch run, it's not going to look like she's doing a heck of a lot of running. More importantly, I'm going to focus in on what she does after the wire. Keep in mind, 6.5 furlongs for Dave Hoffman's first out of the box. I think she wants every part of the additional distance for what it's worth. Her dam is a mare called Balance. You're probably familiar with her, multiple Grade 1 winner, a sibling to Zenyatta. Now, Balance has not been the most productive as far as a mare is concerned. She hasn't thrown any winners just yet, but keep an eye out on this gallop out. I really liked everything about it. Now we stretch out to the 2 turns here on Saturday afternoon in the nightcap, 5-1 on the morning line. I think Out of Balance has a big chance in this race.
Mike Beard, NYRA analyst, who needs Del Mar when you could spend a lovely Saturday afternoon at the Big A?
Nothing like the Big A. They're back there. Now, we're going to race number 3, 2-year-old maiden sprinting 7 furlongs on the main track. I like number 5, Till Then, in this race. We're going to look at his debut right now. This was back on Jockey Club Gold Cup Day at Belmont. This horse made a really nice appearance pre-race, and then he went out of the gates and went really fast on the lead in here. He opened up a clear advantage. I like the way he stays on. He's going to get run down here by a very well-meant and heavily bet first-time starter from the Chad Brown bar, but this horse does not give in to this horse. After setting a fast pace in this race, he settles for second best at the end. He's facing some interesting first-time starters in this race, but going 7/8, those horses are going to have to be as advertised if they're going to run down. Till Then, he ran really well first time out.
I'll go to Parks for my best bet. Race number 7, the number 2X. Danny O. This was a horse that in Southern California for Doug O'Neill could not get out of his own way. He was claimed for $12,500 at Oaklawn by trainer Juan Carlos Guerrero, and he has run one good race after another at Parks. His 3 races around 2 turns have all resulted in victories. No surprise, considering that he's a son of Tiz now, but his most recent effort was just the coming out party, I believe. We're going to take a look at it right now. $25,000, now winner of a 3-life claimer at Parks. This horse coming off a 2-month layoff, sat up close to the pace, takes over turning into the lane, and he just puts the boots to this field. He wins by 9. His buyer speed figure is an 83. He's second choice on the morning line on Saturday as he steps up into this starter allowance, but I love the way he finished this race off. He seems like he's got the tactical speed. He seems like he's able to carry that tactical speed a distance of ground, and I just love the form that Danny O is in. Again, 7-2 on the morning line. I'll take 5-2, 3-1 at post time in race number 7 at Parks. We thank you so much for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's latest offerings on Twitter. Follow at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, follow at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break. Out of the gate.